Welcome to another episode of Big Risk Energy. I'm your host, Roei Samuel. I'm a serial entrepreneur, having founded multiple businesses, including one that I scaled and sold to a gaming company in 2018. I've been an investor for the last 5 years, and I'm super passionate about neurodiversity, suffering with severe ADHD and dyslexia myself. On this podcast, we talk to an amazing range of people, from actors to academics, investors to entrepreneurs, politicians, musicians, scientists, and everyone in between. And we talk to these people about risk. Risk they've taken in their lives, risk they've taken in their careers, when they paid off and when they didn't. And on today's show, I am blessed to be joined by the one and only Niaz Azad. Niaz is a serial entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Millennial Money and the host of the Loose Change podcast. Niaz, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you've done something which 90% of people I know are incredibly jealous of and wish they could do the same, which is start transitioning, start attempting to do the 9-to-5 thing, but also following their passion and doing things that are really exciting them and watching that grow in an amazing way. So what's the journey there and what are the risks been along the way?
First of all, I think it's easy to glamorize it and for people to be really jealous of it. It is amazing, and I'm like super grateful of the journey and being able to do something alongside like working. And I call it like loosely unplugging yourself from the rat race, but also having the security of working as well. It's been an amazing journey, and you do learn so much from actually trying to launch something yourself. But it's like a glass shattering experience, especially if you're working at the same time. Because you realize that the social contract that you've been sold isn't the only way to succeed. But at the same time, you're kind of in that rat race as well. But it's been an amazing journey. I think for me, I've always had a bit of a creative itch, but also always been told that go to a good uni. We went to uni together.
Yep.
And get your good grades and then get into your secure job. And I thought, yeah, maybe that is the way to go, but like it's a bit down the line. And I kind of remember jumping through all of those hoops, right? I've gone to uni now, studied law because I was told, yeah, that's what you do. You go. If you're not going to be, if you're not science minded, you go ahead and do law. And I'm terrible with numbers, so I did that. Did quite well. Didn't love it.
Yeah.
And then started my career in the legal sector.
Yeah.
Where I've been for coming on 6-7 years now.
So when did the penny drop? Because I love that, because I think you're totally spot on, and something we talk about a lot, which is life is a selection of narratives, right? And you can choose lots of different narratives that you want to follow, lots of identities that people want to follow. When did the penny drop for you that actually you don't need to follow this social contract that you've been sold, which is the 2.3 kids, whatever else it might be? Like, when did that penny drop?
Bro, I think I was just really fortunate in that I just made a series of decisions and it started to unravel for me. So even the fact that I studied law, I actually, what's really funny is I got an art scholarship when I was 16, which is so different to like the path that I took. I didn't take the art scholarship. I sort of moved on and then pursued an academic route. But I always had a bit of a creative itch, which went fairly unresolved, but I realized that in small ways I was always like attending to it. Like even at university, I remember like, okay, I'm going to study, but I want to do something else as well. I
remember your nights fondly. The ones that I do remember.
Yeah, exactly. We spent many of those together. But then sort of like I was working and things were going well, my career was going well, and it still is. I always was like, there's something else that I want to do outside. I don't know why, but I kind of want to do it. Which bred into different sort of like brands that I'd always considered. And it's so funny with Millennial Money, which is a company that I'm scaling now with one of my best friends. It's so weird because it was conversations that me and friends were having about money and life and like whether the social contract that we've been sold is broken, and it was just like loads of loose conversations. I remember walking to work one day and just called my mate and I was like, I've got this idea, like it could be nothing, but I've just got this weird idea. And it's so fun. I was walking to work and I called him and he picked up. Fair play to him, because most people will be like, oh, just shut up. And I was like, I think we should like try and do something. So if you imagine your mate calling you and being like, Actually, you'd probably go for it because you're amazing.
No, I don't. I pick up the phone to like 3 people unless it's scheduled. So
listen, I've got this idea. Like, let's just. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
Like, we're still in this rat
how
race.
old are you guys at this stage?
24,
Fine.
25, maybe slightly. I've lost track before. It's pre-pandemic, so like, a couple years like a year maybe pre-pandemic. I was like, we don't have a lot of savings at the moment because we just spend it all on going out.
Sure.
But I've got this idea. Let's just put whatever money we have together and design a brand. This is what I think it's going to do. He was like, yeah, okay, fine. And that delusion.
Love that.
And that delusion, I think you kind of need as an entrepreneur as well at the early stage.
Absolutely.
And because I had my mate who was like, yeah, let's do it and jump in with me, I think that's when it started to unravel. And the excitement builds at the start.
Yeah.
And then when we launched, and it was very actually like considered launch, even though it felt like we're just doing something by chance, and started to gain a bit of traction. I was like, hold on, there's this whole other world out there where you can create something and create value based off an idea that you've had. It's not just like the value that someone ascribes to me because of the work that I do for them.
Sure.
I can actually create value seemingly out of nothing and eventually make money from it.
Which is incredible. And when you've started with Millennial Money, I think as well, what you're tapping into with the type of content you're creating is very similar to the feeling you guys had, which is, that challenging idea of what we should be doing, what is current education around the way that people look at building the money. I mean, I want to get really deep with you on this,
mate, feel free, I'm a deep guy.
So I find it very, very interesting to see 2 big trends going on within, millennials and Gen Z, which is one is people who are understanding financial well-being, understanding that they can have things they want at a later date, by being really sensible. And I see a lot of people who are living for the gram. Right? And where do you see society going? And what have you seen with the content you guys create?
So I think there is a definite shift at the moment where there's a realization, this is kind of what underpins our brand. There's a realization that perhaps the things that we were taught by our mentors, parents even, all of that advice came from a different context and a different setting, and a lot of that advice might not apply today. So our parents, for example, like my dad, he was lucky that he got into the property market 20 years ago, all across East London.
Amazing.
He never had a pension. He never was employed. He was employed in this country, but he hated it. He couldn't work for anyone. It's probably why. He'd quit really, really quickly. But he always was like, no, I need to be my own boss.
Yeah.
He just bought loads of property. He'd never had to consider a pension, and obviously he was lucky enough to experience the boom over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And that is his pension, right? We can't do the same thing.
No,
right?
It's amazing you said that, and I say to my dad frequently, I'm like, how did you not make money during that time? I want to say like it was so there for that generation. As hard done by as they feel they are. It was so there for that generation. They were giving away 110% mortgages.
Yes,
at times.
I know.
My dad got 110% mortgage. I'm like, how did you not ride that wave?
It's crazy.
How did you not realize you could have just done that again and again?
I sometimes say to my dad, I was like, how did you not make more? Like you played it so safe in that period. But he was like, I had kids, I had different considerations, I had to be like, and I do get it, and at the time you don't realize how good you have it, I guess. But I think we have potentially, we can't say yet, like equally like scalable opportunities, we just don't know it yet, right? Because with this advent of technology and other things, and the fact that we can build companies like you've done out of thin air. I say out of thin air.
No, you're totally right. But I mean, the way the technology has moved, the things that we've been able to do just by utilizing open source APIs has allowed us to go so much quicker by not having to build everything as proprietary technology. So you're totally right.
Yeah, so it's different opportunities. And to come back to your previous question, I think it's first of all recognizing that we've got entirely different conditions than we did before. And people are collectively realizing that, and we kind of have to learn from each other. But mixed with that into this pot is the fact that we've also grown up with social media, particularly our generation, where a lot of it is the highlight reel, which I think Gen Z are breaking away from, because things like
Interesting.
TikTok is much more of a candid look into people's lives.
Very interesting.
Whereas Instagram, and us being like the Instagram era, it was much more lifestyle, aesthetic.
Very
Basically, a lot of it was bullshit. It is to become your own PR machine, and that is now fading away slightly. Like, it's still there, obviously, but now things are, and particularly for Gen Z, they want to give a candid insight into life, and also actually not just a candid insight into life, how to gamify life, which is there's so many concepts now that I'm finding online. I'm like, wow, your priorities are so much more productive than the ones that we have.
100%.
Yeah, it's
100%.
crazy.
Yeah, you're right. That democratization to access of info is amazing.
Mate,
and that's why what you guys are doing is so amazing. And that's why when I saw your first 2 bits of content, I was like, you guys are going to smash it.
You messaged me straight away, and I really appreciate
you guys
that.
are going to smash it, because it's, if I have controversial views on reality, I fundamentally believe we do live in a simulation. I've said this for a very long time. And there are rules within the simulation that are not actually the rules which you have to abide by. And it's that gamification, that access to info, and realizing all these hacks of making the system work for you are incredibly powerful.
So I had two points on that, and there's a funny example that I'll give you. The first one was, I realized in my previous law firm that I worked at, they took us on as a client whilst I was an employee. So I delivered workshops for them as founder of Millennial Money. And I also was obviously a full-time employee. And it was amazing to see the support from the employer. But I remember I then sent them an invoice, which was more than my month's salary. And I was like, hold on, that's
a wake-up moment.
That's a moment,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
That's a moment. You're like, wait, what? This is crazy. Like, this is a month's work. This is not a month's work.
Yeah.
And there's parity. And it's moments like that you realize that, hold on, this is a different game.
So at that moment in time, what's the thing that stops you saying, pivot, I'm going full time on this?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think about it regularly. And like, any of my friends will know that I've always kind of teased with the idea of doing it and like going for it and then not. I think part of it is, there is a minimal part of it is fear. But I think also I felt like I had the capacity for a while just to do both. Just because I saw some people doing both, and I was like, if they can do it, like, I can do both, right?
And how are you managing that? How's the body feeling?
Oh mate, it's insane. It's crazy. It's so fun, because I often get texts, and I'm sure you're the same considering how busy you are, from like friends recently, much more so, and it makes me realize that, wait, I am a really busy person. They're like, oh, make sure that you're not working too hard, or you're looking after yourself. And I'm like, wow, I'm actually working all the time. It doesn't always feel like work, which is great. Like, it doesn't always actually feel like work, but at times it really does. So I describe it as doing 2 full-time jobs, because you're a full-time entrepreneur when you begin to scale, but you're also still working full-time. But there is a whole, I don't know, I feel like this space is growing. There's a YouTuber called Ali Abdaal, and he's got a course called like the Part-Time YouTuber Academy. Interesting. Which is, I think he's doing incredible with that. But I think the concept is, you don't necessarily need to quit and go full time, because everyone really glamorizes the success of being a founder. It's not easy. It's not easy.
It's also not often very successful.
Exactly. Which most people don't appreciate, right?
Yeah. I think it's smart.
There is an in between. It is smart.
It's a good strategy.
It is.
This is the thing. I want to be taking money advice from someone with a good diversified strategy, which you've got.
Yeah. It is the more secure way. Yeah. Because you're kind of not taking the big risks and letting go straight away, but you're transitioning, or perhaps you want to keep it up for a long time. But I think this is going to be more and more common now, especially with like the future of content becoming part and parcel to any business. Yeah. And I see so many famous like content creators who are making millions, by the way, some of whom are still working full time. Yeah. So Ali Abdaal, who you referenced, he was a doctor in the NHS. The same year he made over $1 million from YouTube.
Wow.
And you think it's not necessarily about money.
No.
And obviously he's now gone full time, but it took a while for him to transition and go full time into the content game.
Really interesting, really interesting. And I think you make a lot of really, really good points there, especially about the future of work. But I think on a micro level, like individuals who enjoy what they're doing, you know, why would you give up things that you're passionate about? Why would you give up things that you do enjoy? And eventually you might make those decisions, but if you don't feel pressured, there's no need.
It's also relatability. So touching back on what we said about content being candid and relatable, right? I think a lot of what we talk about, people relate to Shaq and I, as we share our stories, the fact that we work.
Shaq in full-time work as well.
Yeah, he's still working full-time as well. It is the fact that we do work and we can talk about people's experiences, because there is also a danger, especially when it comes to money and finances, and this is exactly the angle that we didn't take, is that there's a real guru complex, where it's like, yo, look at me, I've made loads of money, listen to me. Whereas that's a complete lie. Our angle, actually, the reason we got traction was we came on and we kind of laughed at ourselves and said, listen, we've made every mistake there is to make about money. But along the way, we've learned and we've understood why most of us don't understand money. We're just like you, so maybe let's learn together. That's our angle rather than the guru angle. And I think that's why people bought into us.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's having that authenticity, that reality there, which does set you apart from so many. You know, you can go and buy an FX trading course and make 10 million a week, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really refreshing to see. And one of the features that I've always loved, and genuinely I still read every single time, is when you've got you're interviewing different people and it's like the anonymous
the My Millennial Money
exactly.
The stories.
And I always like to check in to see how deluded I am, how bad my relationship with different things is.
It's crazy and it offers a lot of perspective. It's actually really humbling as well, because and we get a lot of comments from people saying, wow, this has really humbled me, because there's people saying they're dreaming of one day being on my salary and I feel like it's not enough. And I sometimes I look at these posts and I'm like, how can I complain? There's people like sustaining families on this amount, or hoping to one day reach this amount.
100%.
It really does offer a lot of perspective.
Well, that's it. And you know, life is perception, right? If reality is literally what you make of it, and life is perception. So when I read it, and you've got a teacher who's on 28K, and it's like, you have more savings than I had when I was making twice before I sold my company. I had nothing. It's like, God, I was a real fuck up. So you know, it's amazing when you see their stories, but I really feel like with the content you guys do, and again, I want your opinion on this in a sec, but it does give me a lot of optimism that people feel optimistic. Because I talk to a lot of people and, you know, when we talk about our parents' generation, things in the 80s, things in the 90s felt like they were going in the right direction. People were excited by new technologies coming, new opportunities, the future looked bright. Now, I don't know about you, but I reckon we've all got like 15, 20 years left to make any money. And then it's, you know, then it's potentially the end days, right? So I don't know, like, how do you see people's perception of the future? Are people excited?
I think there is optimism despite the doom and gloom, because there is now an appetite to learn about money. I think previous generations, it was just such a taboo, right? You don't talk about money, don't talk about how much you earn, but give the perception that you have quite a bit. And then it's also, okay, let's keep up with what we perceive these guys to have, right? It was real smoke and mirrors everywhere. And now I think, as things are breaking down, people are being made aware of opportunities. And realizing that it's not all out of reach, but also for some people, they don't necessarily just want to earn more money. Like, it's different things that they can dive into. So I think there's an optimism founded on some more reality, which is coming out of the transparency made available by social media. Does that make sense? Because it's democratized, first of all, information, but it's also given access to people's experiences. So the fact that I have a friend from university who's managed to build a business and exit and built another business, right? And I'm sitting in front of you. I know that's within the realms of possibility, right?
Yeah, you've got to see it to believe it, right?
100%.
Yeah, and I think it's why it's so important as well, like having that diversity in terms of people's backgrounds, people's
100%.
education, nationality, all those things,
100%.
because it's so important that people need to see it to believe it.
So we didn't appreciate that as much. So Shaq and I, we often get messages saying, wow, like two non-white guys who are doing this is, we almost forget because we're like, oh wait, actually, because money's always been dominated by old white males. Right? And that's part of why people felt really disillusioned. Yeah. And most of our followers are actually women. Again, because it's democratized, because it's, again, they're another like demographic that have historically been disenfranchised from money or the conversation of money. Yeah. So we hadn't really appreciated representation, transparency, and access because they feel collateral, but they're actually really important points that come into it and empower people without you knowing it.
Yeah, it's so important, and literally, you need to see it to believe it, because otherwise, it's something that, and again, it goes back to representation, and there's a lot of people, for one reason or another, who get upset about a drive for better representation. Yeah. But because, like, I think it's just a human thing that I need to be able to imagine what that looks like for me. And if you listen to like sports people, when they talk about visualization, they need to visualize themselves scoring that penalty. So giving people the tools to imagine that's within the realms of their possibility is so important, and definitely, I'm sure, a huge reason as to why people have responded so well to you guys.
Yeah, I imagine so as well. And have you found that I know I enjoy a lot of your neurodivergent content as well. And I think I shared with you that I found out recently my brother was diagnosed with ADHD very late on in life.
How old was he when he was diagnosed?
He's 24 now.
Wow, yeah.
And he was diagnosed. Tough. He was diagnosed at 22.
Yeah,
22. So
really
his
tough.
whole life, we were like, he's so talented, right? And like he like taught himself to play the piano in like 2 weeks, and like taught himself to play the guitar. But then we'd be like, why are you so bad with like time management? And like, he'd always get feedback like he's like a bit distracted and everything, and his whole life he had ADHD, and he just always felt like maybe he's like too lazy or too but that was like a real moment.
It must have been such a light bulb moment.
Yeah,
it was life changing.
I remember he actually ran home and he was like, I told you, you guys have blamed me my whole life. But I was really...
It's just great for that reason. Like, you can finally tell everyone. That
When did you find out?
I was 15. Okay. I was 15, and I found out because I was about to be expelled from secondary school. I was the worst behaved. I was getting into all sorts.
Really?
Like, I was just a nightmare, rightfully so. I say rightfully so. The way that I was behaving would lend itself to someone who should be expelled, because I was that much of a nuisance, that much of a distraction. Wow. So bad. And then I got the diagnosis, and I took medication for a while, and I found that really helped, and then I came off it, and I haven't taken medication in years, and there's lots of pros and cons with that, and you know, there needs to be more information available to people about the realities of taking that medication and not, and the impact it has on every area of your life. But for sure, you know, when you find that out, and when you do the, again, goes back to information, the research and the learning around the different types of thinking associated with that specific neurodivergence, like catastrophic thinking or magical thinking, you know, one day you can wake up and you can take over the world. Yes. Right? Next day, nothing's changed. Objectively, the exact same situation as the day before, but you're a piece of shit who can't accomplish anything. Yeah, it's mad. You know, but learning about that, it's like, okay, this is my ADHD, and that's why it's such a life-changing moment, I think.
But the diagnosis, was it quite validating of your feelings and experiences?
Yeah, for sure. And I was very, very thankful to my school, which, although it was a state school, had a very, very strong focus on special needs education. Wow, yeah, exactly. So being able to, like, for example, get a laptop for my exams, because dyslexia is like, I couldn't write. I couldn't do it. Like, I literally wouldn't have got to uni without that diagnosis. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you see the way that things go from there, and then, you know, meeting you guys and seeing all the entrepreneurialism there. It's all butterfly effect, right? So
it's crazy.
Helping people get those diagnoses. And I can imagine if I found out at 22, I'd have a real feeling of frustration of like, what if I found out earlier? Yeah,
and like, thankfully he's doing amazingly well. Like, he's just started his career in the city.
Nice.
And they gave him an opportunity through his neurodivergence, right? So he's working at Bloomberg.
Amazing.
And he was like, I would never have managed to get a job at Bloomberg. He did politics at uni.
Yeah.
But now in his cohort, he's one of the highest performers.
Incredible.
And you just think like the usual barriers and the usual measuring yardsticks, they don't always apply to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's been inspiring. But to take it back to what you were asking earlier, I think that validation and representation kind of go hand in hand, because it's like, I don't need to be put under any limitations that someone else puts over me. And that is a big thing that I realized as well. That was another penny drop moment. Because the limitations people put over you might be a manager that you have, right? That tells you you're shit. Or it might be a place that you're working in that you don't entirely fit in, and they make you feel like, oh, you're one of the ones that you should succumb to mediocrity. And then you kind of break away and do something for yourself. The conversation changes.
Yeah.
The conversation changes. And it's the same feeling when you're working, right? In a corporate job or whatever job. And then you break away and you do something for yourself. You're at the table with usually people at a different sort of like level of the, because you're speaking to, so suddenly when I became a founder or a founder of a company whilst working, the conversation that I was having with people as a founder was with other founders or CEOs, or, but within the corporate structure that I sat in, I might have just been an early level manager or an analyst or whatever. It breaks everything, and that's the glass shattering.
So interesting.
So it really, when you're doing both at the same time, in your simulation reality, it's like a big like glitch.
Yeah,
because
totally.
because the level that you're in, you've like suddenly found a glitch where you're like, wait, but I can step in here as well.
Exactly.
It's insane.
100%.
And it's a real weird reality, because you see how most people, like all of us included, because it's all we've ever been told, is that you follow this route.
Yeah.
And you do it for long enough, and you're going to have all of these things, right? Which was a house, and like kids go to good schools, holidays, whatever, right? And a mortgage, And that's what you can achieve if you just follow this route. And that's a fairly happy route for some, or for most, right? But then you're like, wait, I can achieve it by other means, and maybe like not have to just be given this contract or this promise, which isn't even achievable anymore through these means. It's a real like.
And this is it, and it is, and it does break your mind in a way, because it does make you question everything in that sense. And you know, so much stuff that you go into that side. But how does it then feel for you when, by night, you're running things, you're having those conversations, you can knock on anyone's door and have a meaningful conversation because of what you've built with Millennial Money. And then by day, it must be frustrating, right?
Yeah, it's weird to compartmentalize. At first, sometimes I wondered whether it would be a bit awkward. But then I've seen like other creators in the workplace now, and I think that's made it a bit easier, because at first you're like, wait, what are they going to think? Like, what's it going to be like? But I think by and large, people have, certainly my employees and Shaq's employees, have been really lucky. They've been really supportive. I think it's made me better at my job, because I'm not afraid to like face off with senior stakeholders and feel small, because I'm like, I have very serious conversations outside of it with very senior stakeholders that actually impacts my bottom line. So I don't feel as nervous, but there are times where where you notice the red tape, the bureaucracy, and you're just like, this is bullshit. Like, you don't need to go through so many different hoops to make this decision. Those are the frustrations.
I can imagine. And in terms of moving forward, like, do you see that the risks you've taken in your career with Millennial Money have led to a different approach to risk in other areas of life as well? Yeah, definitely. I think it's now I've become a bit more nonchalant, as much as possible, because if you don't try something, you're guaranteed it's not going to work. And I know people used to always say that, and I used to be like, yeah, shut up. But, sounds cliche, but it's true, right?
But it's crazy. Like, some of the even like people are so obsessed with vanity metrics, they don't realize how much opportunity they close themselves off to. There was videos that we'd released, because we've only just pivoted to video, I was like, I was getting like 100, 200 views. You're not realizing that one of those views is a person, by the way. And then we jumped on like a call with a PR agency who reached out to us and got a significant contract, because one of those 200 views was like a major UK like corporate. And you're like, what? How are you finding this stuff? You don't realize it. Like you really don't. When you get caught up in the vanity metrics, you don't realize. And I was like, wait, I would have closed myself off to that opportunity because of the number I'm seeing, the algorithm is popping up.
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, what you learn, like when you've gone around the cycle a few times, is it always starts small.
Yeah.
I mean, you might get lucky. You might get super lucky and hit something viral very, very early. But for the most part, and in many ways, that's actually not the way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Like because a lot of people aren't ready to go viral.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd have gone super duper viral. We have gone really viral once. Yeah. But it was across like different platforms. And one of my friends was telling me, this infographic you made. He's a political reporter. He was like, one of the infographics you made was discussed by politicians, and I don't want to say the Commons, but I was like, what? Like, this is something that I sat in my room. Yeah. Like, it's so funny to think it's something that I just sat in my room and like made. Like, and you watch it go viral, and you're like, how's this happening?
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember when we were doing RealSport, we had something, we nearly got sued by Man City. Really? Because it went so big, because we didn't get the right licensing in place, like we didn't have the right licensing at all, and just blew up on Facebook, and we're like, shit, no. We were like amazing, and then we got a legal letter, and it was like, Jesus. So you never know, but I think what you realize is that even if something does go viral, or like you have a massive sales day, like making this applicable to other businesses, whatever it might be, like it's always going to be like that, right? And therefore you can't be scared to be seen when it's on that part of the curve. Yeah. You know, there's going to be things that you do that don't work. We fail every single day across multiple different, verticals within everything that we do. Yeah. Right? Failure is just part of this journey. Yeah. The difference is it's that fear piece that you mentioned at the start. And although even if you've not gone all in, the hardest thing is to put the first thing out. Yeah, 100%. It's mad. Like I said, it's for us. So for example, we've never ever done outbound we've never done, and which is great because I've worked in corporate businesses. I've worked in sales before. Yeah. It's all outbound, reaching out, cold calls, whatever, right? Prospecting. We've never ever done anything outbound, and we've made we've scaled a business, right? All of the money we've made is inbound. People saying we want to work with you. How easy is that to sell? Like, it's such an easy sell. I go into sales school thinking I'm the guy, but really they already wanted to work with me, right? And the reason that's possible is because all of our outbound is the stuff that we're putting out. Yeah. That is the outbound, because you're putting out your content. People are like, they're seeing it already, and they're finding you. So I think getting your head wrapped around that and putting yourself out there is just opening up the net of opportunities, and eventually more and more will just fall into it. Totally. And I think it's a really interesting one. And when we talk about future of work, I see lots of different routes there. But if we talk about future of employment as well, it's interesting that I do believe there'll be a massive trend towards, it's not going to be which education you have, it's what authority do you have around your subject. And I think we're going to see a new type of marginalization as more and more people become content creators. For those who have created content and those who haven't. Like, I encourage with Connected, post every single day. Do it every single day. I was going to ask you that. Win-win. Yeah. Win-win. There's no downside. It's good for us. It's good for you. Like personal branding. But I see that that's going to be a new challenge. Now, I think there are very interesting ways of rewarding and remunerating people who want to get involved with lots of different projects, like DAOs, for example, I think are a really interesting concept, which are going to become more and more prevalent as Web3 technologies start taking over, and I think that will be a thing. But I literally can't encourage my team enough. Like, start building that personal brand, because ultimately that's going to be one of your biggest differentiators in a couple of years. Well, you're the personal brand king on LinkedIn. Exactly. No, it's true. It really. So there's a guy called Alex Hormozi. I don't know if you know who that is, right? He's scaled like 100 million. He says his net worth is $100 million now, and he hated the idea of personal branding until he realized that
entirely helps his business, right? He was like, I don't want to be famous. Like I'm just some like weird old guy. Like his business was from gyms. Like he had loads of like gyms that he'd like expanded and franchised. That was his original business. And then he said when he saw, is it Kylie Jenner that was a billionaire?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm probably not qualified to say that.
Yeah, but I think he said when he saw that Kylie Jenner became a billionaire, all from personal branding. Yeah, that's the Kardashians, and like that's what they've done. 100%. It's all personal branding. He was like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. Like I'm working this hard, and this like 23 or 24-year-old has become a billionaire just from Instagram clout. Yeah. Right. But he took that concept and he realized that building your personal brand is going to become more and more important because that is the association that people have with. It's a funnel. So it's a funnel that people have into your corporation, basically.
It's a marketing arm.
100%.
It's a channel, and it can be your most powerful organic one.
Exactly.
And we talk about ROI, we talk about cost of acquisition. Yep. Personal branding channel is always going to be your best economics.
100, and it's changing because if you think about the old school way of advertising, you're just blind advertising, right? Hoping that you get a few bites. But now you're getting targeted advertising, which is the whole like influencer marketing thing, how it all happened, was that you're getting people to, it's the recommendation economy. You're getting people to recommend based on something that they're already interested in and packaging it out. Now take that a step further and become the recommender of your own, like brand. And it's crazy.
It really is. And I think you mentioned this point just before when we were talking is big shift. And I think it's probably the best shift is it's moved towards content rather than just creator. So the focus on good content, the focus on engagement, the focus on informing people is becoming more and more important. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see how that precludes people from getting involved if they don't have the means to create quality content. So I think it's going to, as with every opportunity, there are more and more challenges. Guys like Dream Factory, what you guys are doing, it's awesome. No, it's really, really cool because it's giving people those tools. But again, it's another barrier to entry. Like if it doesn't look good, if it doesn't sound good, it's tougher.
Although, and then for the resourceful amongst, especially like Gen Z, right? You have your phone. Everyone has a phone now, and you see how like viral people are going. And you don't have to go viral. That's I use that term loosely. You don't have to go viral, but people are able to just pick up their phone, tell stories, and build a brand around it. And that is quite a new concept. So I remember when people people we knew first started to like get into social media, and you just thought, it's a bit self-serving. Like it's a bit weird. And then you realize that actually no, like. There's real businesses being built out of it. And it's not just a vanity thing anymore.
Someone creating content is the same as someone else going to the gym in that some people might go to the gym just to look good, but most people do it to feel good. Most people do it to achieve something outside of it. And I think it's just part of the, it's another string to the bow that people have.
Do you struggle?
Constantly, every single day, with everything.
Certainly with like friends, perhaps who don't understand it, right? Who are much more traditional in their, like they don't get it, right? And I sometimes I've given up on explaining because it seems like a desperate attempt to explain, or you kind of resort to, it sounds like you're showing off, and I don't want to fall into either camp.
For sure.
But I'm the type of person that like, when I discover something, I'm like, get in on it. I'm like, everyone get in on it, right? But not everyone wants to listen, or they think it's silly or whatever. But then I don't want to be like, you don't understand how much money you can make or how much.
I think I found, so when I started RealSport, so I was doing my master's, we talk about risk, because my master's at LSE, I dropped out. I dropped out when RealSport numbers started to pick up. Huge risk, right? And a lot of my friends were like, you're a fucking idiot. And they're probably right. A lot of delusion which goes into it. Like 100%. On a pure risk analysis basis, it was an insane decision.
Especially back then, because it wasn't obvious that you could make money from content.
Absolutely. Like it was pre like meaningful monetization of content. So huge risk that we took. But what I got to after a while was two main things. One is this was straight out of uni, if you remember. So I had all my home mates, I had all my uni mates. It was the biggest group of friends I ever had. By the time we sold the company, I had like 4 mates. Do you know what I mean? Like it whittled down massively for multiple reasons. One, because some people won't get it. A lot of your friends become haters. A lot of your friends become haters. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
And it's on you to cut out toxic elements, I
Yeah.
think. It's a bit brutal, but it's the way that I see it. But the other thing is, there's no point explaining. So when I started Connected, even with my close mates,
Didn't get it.
I didn't bother. Didn't bother explaining it. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, I've been quite lucky. We've been quite lucky, Shaq and I, in that we have very supportive friends.
Yeah.
Right. Not all of them get it, but they'll support it. Right.
Yeah.
And that has been really helpful because I'm actually not as. I don't know. Shaq's amazing at this. He can just be like, don't care. I'm not interested. Don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
I'm the little, no, love me. Like, right. So I really care about what people think about.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get better at it.
Yeah.
And it would really impact me.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to realize you can't win everyone over.
100%.
And you also don't need to.
100%. So many people spend so many years trying to please everyone,
Yeah.
and then you realize you can't. No matter what you do.
Yeah.
So you can spend 30 years trying to placate everyone, living for other people, putting them first, and still, even then, you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
So once you realize that, a good way of realizing that is doing stand-up.
Yes,
as well.
I saw when you did that, mate.
You find out very quickly people don't appreciate you.
A lot of people actually are going into stand-up, and they say it's like one of the best things they've done for their business.
Yeah.
And like entrepreneurship and like their personal like.
I'd say
just
the
being
two
able
biggest things for me is one, I did it after selling RealSport.
Okay.
Made a lot of money for a 26-year-old.
Yeah.
Bomb in a room of 80 people. Humility restored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, straight back down to earth.
Yeah.
Second thing is, like, genuinely, there's nothing scarier than bombing in front of like 200 people. So after that, any meeting, like I gave a talk at Goldman Sachs last Tuesday.
Yeah, I saw, mate. Unbelievable.
Water off a duck's back.
Unbelievable.
After bombing, like at the comedy store, like everything else is easy.
It's so funny because I used to be such a good public speaker. Honestly, I would walk into any room and just be like, yeah, it's calm. I'll just go up and do it. I've only just developed, like, I get the frog in my throat now. Beforehand, as soon as I get flowing, I'm fine. But it's really weird. I'm like, how have I developed that later on? Because people would look at me and consider me quite a confident person.
That's really interesting. What do you think it is?
I don't know. I think it's a number of probably just like life experiences where maybe like also like actual like working too much and like being just mildly borderline anxious all the time.
Yeah.
Because you're not sleeping as much, you're always working and you're switching from one thing to the other. This isn't the one thing of the day that I'm thinking about. Where I'm like, oh wait, am I prepped for this? Because my style of like delivering like is always, I think I'm capable of doing it, so I'm gonna go out and see how it's done. It's not super rehearsed. I'm never super rehearsed, and it can work really in my favor. Yeah. But the one or two times it doesn't, you're just like, oh my God, nothing is landing. Yeah, it's
That's very funny.
I can imagine
but that's great though. That's great. I think if you can have that extemporaneous style of speaking where it's like, you know what you're talking about, but it's not over rehearsed. Because otherwise the people feel that very quickly.
Yeah, 100%.
If it comes across inauthentic again, like it comes across like, you're too prepared, and like you know, you've just learned this off by heart. You're not in the moment. Like,
I agree.
you know, listen, it never goes well all the time, right?
I was gonna ask you as well because, mate, I've been following your content intently over the years.
Love that.
But you touched on as well how you lose a lot of people and you lose a lot of things. There's a great sacrifice in being an entrepreneur, and even like an entrepreneur that's still working as well. Like I'm starting to realize I can't spin every plate. I'm just getting there now because I think I've tried to just carry on as normal, but I'm not living a normal life anymore.
No, you're not.
And it's like I was at first. It was like like I finish work and then I log back on and do my own thing, or I'm on the weekends I'm doing this, or I'm kind of always working. But yeah, it's fun. It's funny. And then I'm still trying to keep up my social appearances and like all my friends, and then quite quickly my WhatsApp feels like a second inbox. Yeah. And I love my friends and I feel like I want to show them that I love them, but sometimes I will miss stuff. Yeah. And I remember you saying as well, like friendships, relationships, like miss out. Yeah. And you really do need people to understand. Yeah. And I'm only getting to that point now where someone actually sat me down and went, "You're too busy." I was like, "Am I?" But I'm here with you right now. Like I'm capable of I'm giving you my time.
Yeah, but you're not there, right?
Yeah, it's mad.
You're not there. I mean, you need to have really understanding people around you, because the thing is, like with a brain like yours, right? sometimes you can be present, but you're not present, right? Especially with the amount of plates you're spinning, right? So relationships can take a hit, friendships can take a hit. Ultimately, it's all about prioritization for you. And I think at the end of the day, like whether life's a simulation or not, we only get one shot at it, right? And we've all ultimately got to feel comfortable and happy with the prioritizations that we make. And ultimately, like in bed at night, at the end of the day, there's only one person you answer to, right? And that's yourself in terms of how you're feeling. And it's just a thing for everyone to know on their own journey. That's why every journey is so different. We talk about glamorization of doing this thing. We shouldn't glamorize it. We should celebrate it if it's the right thing for ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not for everyone. So I think you've just got to come to like a point where you feel good with the decisions that you're making. So for me, it's I get my friends together once every 2-3 months, and that's my social. But I love working with my team. Like we have such an amazing culture. So I think I've overcompensated my lack of
fix.
Do you know what I mean? By building more of like a team and friendly culture, which is actually great for the business. But ultimately, like you've got to know what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, mate. That's gonna sit in there because I think it's being comfortable slowly with the sacrifices that you might have to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then sometimes I'm like, okay, these sacrifices I'm making, why? Do you ever get to the, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
And then,
every day.
Yeah. And then I realize, and then I sit there, I'm like, right, take all of this away from me, right? Which, fine, whatever. I never did it for the money. At the start, we weren't making money, but it was taking all of my time, right? What would I be doing instead? I'd be itching to do something else.
For sure.
Like, because I can't just...
For sure.
Especially now that I've seen broken away from the Matrix, right? I can't just sit still.
100%. So I'd say there's two things that I've seen with the most successful people I know. Very rarely money oriented.
Okay.
Very rarely money oriented. They would be bored in half an hour. Into curious mind, whatever you call it. But also, like, if philosophy is the love of thinking, entrepreneurialism is the love of building, right? It's just the love of building. Like I'm not doing this for a payoff at the end. I'm doing this because I want to see how far I can go.
One of my mates, who was a previous co-founder of mine with the bakery back in uni days.
There's a smirk there. The bakery was great. The bakery was a good brand.
Oh mate, it's a lifetime ago. He basically said to me, he's one of my best friends, has known me for years, like over a decade now, and he said to me that you just like building shit. And that's how he summarized it. He just said, I think you just like building shit. Because it does take a weird obsession, right? And I can imagine that I can be quite annoying when I'm just banging on about this stuff. Which I also find hilarious, and some people might find endearing, and other people will be like, "Oh, what a prick." But I think that's what it is. I think it's the moments that you get whilst you're building something. Like for you, maybe building a team. And for me, honestly, like we've recently taken on someone, and it's been crazy to like hand stuff over, which we've had to do because we're scaling. And then I thought, wow, like. We've got someone who's dedicated his own personal time to this thing that we've built, and it's a crazy moment. But you're like, oh wow, like this actually is something tangible, right? And
you'll also find that when you start bringing in more people, your desire to make it work will increase. Because it then becomes about rewarding the people who are giving their time.
It's already like, so even though it's just one person who has said, this is my full-time thing, right? I'm like, we have to make money.
It's like, this has to work.
We have to make money. I want money for him. Like, and I want him to feel like, so it is quite an empowering thing. And with the way you guys have grown, did you find that impact the effects?
Of course. I mean, look, it's tough as well in the sense of, we've hired a lot of people. We had to let a lot of people go because we have incredibly high expectations, and we hire super ambitious people. And, again, this comes back to the thing of like, you can spend your life placating everyone, but ultimately the placators, they end up getting fucked. Well, because if you're the placator, it means it falls on your head. And ultimately, as a CEO, like we've raised quite a lot of money now. Like, and more for my team who are super ambitious. Like, you can't hold on to people who don't have the same level of ambition, don't have the same level of effort. So, and that was the hardest thing. That's the thing which weighs heaviest on me. When you unfortunately have to let someone go, it never gets easier, and it's always a horrible, conversation to have. But we're really, really fortunate in that we've had 2 people leave the business, and as in who wanted to leave the business, and both asked for their jobs back within 2 months. One left for Amazon, one left for Warner Brothers. They both wanted to come back because of how strong the culture we built is. But that also makes it harder at times. Because when we have to let people go, like, they don't want to go, and I understand it, but it's that team environment rather than family environment that allows us to grow in that way, because it's like, we all got to be in this together. We all expect the highs of each other. Like, you're a United fan. Things are so bad right now, but it's, teams grow and adapt, they change, and people come, people go. So you've got to have that. But it's never easy. But the thing which drives you on, we had Nick Telson on the other day on the podcast, and most entrepreneurs have had an exit. Like, the best day ever is when you can repay back your early investors, your early employees. That's the best feeling.
Yeah, I bet. And that was such an interesting, it must feel like a bit of a spiritual experience, because you take someone into a room and you tell them, I'm about to change your life.
Yeah.
That's crazy, being able to deliver that. And that must be amazing, because it's like, you believed in me.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the best feeling is like giving, and on a smaller scale, is like when you're able to give someone a pay rise, because actually they're contributing in a way that's growing everything, and it makes such a difference to people. Like, these are the things which, make the world go around, right?
Yeah, it's mad. So in our situation, right, it's a friend of mine, he's amazingly talented, and he made the very brave decision to quit the rat race like a year ago. And then he went traveling for 8 months, didn't work, but he's also a part-time creative. But he's amazing. Like, you've seen our amazing videos now, how we've scaled. It's him who does it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's built a bit of a team. And then he's come back from traveling after having a year of self-discovery, and he's been through a lot. And he was like, after all that, do I have to go back and get a job? So he's in this in-between stage where he's got his parents who care for him a lot. He's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then I was like, come work with me. And it's amazing to be like, right, here's your route out of having to go back to work and do something you actually want to do and build instead.
Amazing.
And that is it's amazing to think that you can give that kind of opportunity with people. I don't want to make it sound like I'm giving this opportunity.
No, of course,
This is an opportunity. This is all him, right? To build and build together.
But being able to be a conduit of that is amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so we could do this for, you'll definitely come back on, but got a few questions for you to ask everyone. All right, first one is, what's the single biggest risk you've taken, and what was the outcome?
Probably convincing my mate to give me a load of his savings so we can launch Millennial Money.
That is a big risk to me.
Because at the time we were earning and just getting ourselves into more debt. I don't even know if we'd long got ourselves out of debt by the time I was like, yo, just give me your savings, and we'll join our savings together and launch this thing. It paid off in that, not just financially, but because we're still very much on that journey, but just like the opportunities and learnings that have come from that, the conversations I've been able to have. Probably, being like, listen, just trust my delusion.
I mean, this is how you know you're a born founder. That's a tougher pitch you're ever going to make, right?
Yeah.
Getting your best mate to give him your life savings. That's amazing. Okay, what is the single thing, and this doesn't have to just be within Millennial Money.
Of course,
single thing you're proudest of?
So, it's probably actually something that I was able to do recently, maybe in the last 3 years. My mother passed away 18 months ago, and when we found out that her cancer had recurred and she was going to go back into chemotherapy, I was like, I wanted to do something for her. Every son wants to do something for their mum, right? So I refurbished the downstairs of her house. Wow. Which didn't feel like a big thing at the time. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm going to do this thing, do this project. And she had 6 months in that environment. And my mum was a really simple woman. And you could see how happy she was, and just loved that, oh my God, wow, this is something so small that my sons did. but now I look back and I really like value that experience and being able to do something, because I think a lot of people go their whole lives being like, one day I'm going to do something for my parents, and I didn't know my mum was going to have such a short life, but luckily I was given the opportunity to do something. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
No worries at all.
It's amazing, something to be incredibly proud of. It's amazing. Okay, what does it take to be successful?
I think a high degree of delusion. Right?
Love that.
Yeah,
you won't
definitely.
be surprised the amount of people who say that.
No,
right?
100%. You have to be deluded into thinking that there is a possibility that you'll succeed beyond like your current imagination. Discipline, I think that's a big thing, and I haven't always had it, but I think a lot of the time when you look at success here and you're way over here, the only way, you're not going to be able to jump from here to there, but just turning up every day, even when it doesn't feel like you're winning, that's the discipline that it takes, right? Turning up and being like, oh my God, this is a pain. I can't believe I have to do this. I'm not getting anything in return, but just turning up anyway. You can apply that to anything, fitness, business. I think discipline is really important. So discipline and delusion probably.
Amazing, 2 Ds, love that. Okay, anything that you look back at that you'd have done differently?
Yeah, I think when I graduated, so I was the eldest sibling, right? Like first in my family to go uni. I felt a lot of pressure to just not make any slip-ups. There wasn't any room for error. But I would have just maybe taken a bit of time to myself to realize what it is that I'm good at, what do I want to do, give myself back that time. And I think I would have made slightly different decisions. I don't regret it, but I reckon if I'd have given myself maybe even a year, I would have probably made better decisions way earlier in my life.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And as we say, if you're happy with the here and now, ultimately you don't change anything, right?
Exactly.
Because it's led you to this point. But it's always interesting to hear that, and makes a lot of sense. And it's we had Pierce Linney on the show last week. He was an awesome guy, and he was saying like it's so much of the way that we need to craft our journey in the early days is so impacted by all the voices around us, and it's rarely our voice, and we could all do better by listening to ourselves a bit more, right? Okay, my last question for you is, 15-year-old Niaz walks in the room right now, what are you going to tell him?
Wow. Wow. Keep coding, because you absolutely don't know how to code now. Because maybe keep coding, and just keep smiling and keep being naive, I think. And open to opportunities. Like, don't let the world make you a pessimist, because I think I was just a raging optimist always, annoyingly so sometimes. So I'd say just keep that kind of innocence.
Love that. Anything you want to plug?
Follow us at Millennial Money UK and at Loose Change Pod. We have loads of conversations to help share the experiences of young people. And you're always welcome to reach out to us as well. We're a friendly face.
Amazing, Niaz. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Nice one.